Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining me for this inaugural BOQ Specialist Virtual Stand-Up. I'm sitting here on level 21 in Chifley, pretty much on my lonesome in one of the meeting rooms. I would have very much loved to have done this stand-up in person, but obviously with the onset of the COVID crisis that beset us in March, this has obviously forced us to adapt and think and work very differently. But personally, I'm excited about the future when we can all get back together and do these roadshows in person. But in the interim, we'll do the best that we can, and we'll use the technology, which I think has served us reasonably well in the last 4 months. Today, the purpose of the session is really to give you a bit of a brief in terms of how we're going as a business. And we've got a great lineup of speakers. Following my update, Hannah Winter will share some of the great work that she's been doing from a training perspective across the commercial part of our business, which has really been focused on helping us simplify and build stronger execution capability there. Then Gavin will provide an update on some of the exciting project initiatives that are in the pipeline, particularly those that are in support of our digital banking strategy. Tim Bowring will then share some of our end of financial year client promotion success stories and what's been happening in the supplier space. And then prior to the close, we're going to have an open session where you get the opportunity to ask any questions that you might have. And Tracy Ruff will be acting as our moderator for this session. We've already received a number of questions, so thank you for those of you that have submitted questions. So if you're dialing in via the web link, you can type your question progressively through the presentation, using the box called chat on the left side of your screen. And also if you're using Yammer, you can post your questions on Yammer, but please use the hashtag BOQS question time. So let me start by sort of giving you guys a bit of an update on the last period of time, and I think it's fair to say that both professionally and personally, I think I speak for us all that this has been a very unique period in our lives. Now, if I scroll back to where we were 4 months ago at the beginning of March, and I still remember being at the ADX in Sydney. When the drums started to beat very significantly about the impact of COVID-19, and in those early days there was some modelling that suggested that 20 to 60% of the Australian population would become infected, and there was a possible fatality rate of 1%, and that was implying a loss of life of between 50 and 150,000 Australians. And then what effectively was a impending healthcare crisis also manifested itself into a crisis of livelihoods. That time has gone very rapidly, but I thought it'd be worthwhile just giving you a little bit of a recapping on some history as to what happened in that 4 month period, because certainly the healthcare sector, which I'm very, very confident that will come out strongly as a consequence of this crisis, but it was the sector that was specifically hard hit early on. There was concern for professional healthcare workers' safety, particularly on the back of reports out of China that this group were particularly susceptible. There was also some deep concern in the sector around the limitations on the supply of personal protective equipment. And there was also concerns around patients that, particularly the elderly and those that are susceptible to illness, about the risk of infection while visiting their practitioner. Those feelings and challenges were further exacerbated by an appropriate but strong government response, which did have some major impacts on our sector. Dentistry particularly was hard hit, and you might recall that on the 23rd of March that the government put a stop to all non-essential dental treatments, which basically meant that dentists could only do emergency work, and that effectively meant the majority of our customers were staring into a devastating reduction in their revenues and cash flows. not long after, on the 1st of April, the government, in order to preserve capacity within the healthcare system, put a restriction on non-urgent surgeries that meant only the most urgent of elective surgeries, described as Category 1, could be undertaken. And again, that put an enormous load on the system, and indeed, over the following 6 weeks, while those restrictions persisted, the waiting list for elective procedures grew by about 67,000, which was material. As a business that is focused on professionals and strongly focused on the healthcare profession, that had a material impact on our customers and indeed on us. We saw the first lot of customer requests for relief and support come in mid-March, and I think in the early days we were getting requests for about $10 to $12 million worth of customer exposure, seeking banking relief requests in the form of deferred payments across our residential and commercial portfolios. That materially ramped up, and I think some of you may have heard me talk, but I think on the 23rd of March, we were receiving in excess of $350 million worth of requests on that single day. As our customers were really uncertain about what the future was going to mean, both for their professions and also their personal capacity in relation to meeting their home loan and credit card commitments. Pleasingly, though, I think that the interventions that both from a health perspective and from a government stimulus perspective have seen a successful flattening of the curve and also a better understanding about how to manage through crisis. So, generally the level of restrictions in dental were progressively removed back in early May, and we've certainly seen a number of our customers across the board come back to trading, not quite at pre-COVID levels, but certainly at levels that are materially up from where they were in the depths of the crisis. With elective surgeries now back on board, back up and running, and they're trying to get through the backlog. And as I said, we're back down to level 1 restrictions in dentistry. Certainly, our GP customers are also seeing more customers feel confident or more patients feel confident to go back and see them. That being said, that this crisis is far from over. Our colleagues in Victoria have some challenges at the moment with the localised outbreak of infections, and my expectation is that while Queensland, New South Wales, South Australia and WA have generally been free of these additional localised outbreaks, that I think it would be naive to think that the outbreaks won't continue for the near and medium, even to the long term, until a vaccine is found, and that's still some time off, not only in terms of finding a vaccine, but then also producing it and distributing it through firstly to the most vulnerable and then to the broader community. So I think as an organisation, we are going to have to continue to live with some level of restrictions, which will impact the way we work, and it will also impact the way that our customers and our clients are operating. It's not lost on me also that how challenging it has been for all of you to deal with both the issues of clients, but also some challenges, with working from home. I think this crisis has shown that working from home can be effective. I personally like being in the office. Some say I probably like being in the office too much, but I think I certainly have missed the camaraderie. I've been doing the Team A and coming in each week. We are seeing more people come into the office, which is great, but I do understand the anxiety of people, particularly those that get public transport. And I'm also conscious that working from home doesn't give you the bookends on a day that it ordinarily would do if you came into the office. And there's been some huge efforts, and I will call them out shortly, of people working big hours and putting in a massive extra time. So I do want to appreciate people from working from home, which isn't necessarily ideal. We've also had to deal with some additional oversight by our risk colleagues, which is completely appropriate in these times because there are some customers and some customer groups that are going to be challenged for a period of time. And indeed, some customers are probably going to not come out of this. My expectation is that there won't be many in our space, but it'd be naive to think that there won't be. In addition, there has been some challenges in headcount. Obviously, with the onset of the crisis and the uncertainty about what's potentially coming next, that there's been additional steps that the group has put in place, which has hindered our ability to efficiently and effectively replace heads that have left us. I believe now we're through that and we've got the relevant approvals necessary to get back up to full capacity. But I acknowledge that has put extra strains on the business. Quite apart from the 10,000 business banking package relief requests that we've had across our customers. In context, 20% of our residential clients and 40% of our commercial clients have applied for some form of relief. Now, a lot of them are now removing that relief, but that has put an enormous additional load both in terms of the front office and middle office, and it will continue to do so for a couple more months. June is typically probably the most exciting time of the year for me around the office because of the buzz and the morning teas and the camaraderie. This June was very different because we couldn't all be together, but that didn't stop everybody stepping up and working tirelessly in support of our business and our clients. This year too, there was added pressure at June 30 with the instant asset write-off, which was part of the government stimulus package to drive some more activity in the economy. And we saw some huge volumes coming through in asset finance and particularly cars. And all the teams have pulled together, working some big hours to meet those customer commitments across sales and sales support and risk, and in fact all areas of our business. I was closely watching the numbers tick over, up to 11 o'clock on Tuesday night, and people were still processing deals, and that's off the back of having worked extensive overtime and weekends to get there. We're still finalising the numbers for June, but it's looked like we wrote close to $230 million, which was at 136 million in commercial and 94 in resi. And that's a huge result given the economic environment that we're currently operating in. I do acknowledge, though, that we did have to defer some deals into July because we just couldn't physically process everything, and there was indeed a very late rush associated with the the instant asset write-offs. But and I totally acknowledge that the ops teams are continuing to be stretched at the moment, dealing with the deals that were deferred and also the hardships. I've been working with Anthony and the group, and we have organised a number of temps, which the first lot will be starting on Monday across both resi and commercial to help particularly with the banking relief package workload, so that we can make sure that we're meeting the current demand for our existing customers who are looking to acquire new assets or new lending. Look, there's so many people who have worked extraordinarily hard over the last few months, and I have been ringing a number of people to thank them personally, and I am going to call out a few names now. Apologies if I don't call your name. I do appreciate you. I just thought that there are some people that I did want to, and some teams that I just wanted to specifically call out. The credit team has been under the pump. There were several days in June where they were approving between 80 and 90 deals a day. Paul and the business intelligence team have been inundated with document requests and also putting together portals and various analysis to help us run the business. The CSC has been fantastic. Despite the additional customer demands and the fact that they're all working from home, Connor and Yugita and Nick and the team have made a big difference, and our average speed of answer, the abandonment rates and the call handling times have all been fantastic, and thank you. In terms of the general ops team, Justin, Norman in asset finance, Matt and Shigita from post-settlement ops, John Lee and Emily, cards and payments, Daniel, transaction banking, and Stephanie from Resi Ops are going to some of the people in those ops teams that have been going above and beyond. In our sales teams, starting with Queensland, I appreciate that there's been some shortages of staff, particularly in the IC space and including in Resi, but Laura, Sam, Javis, Jessica, Michael and Tatiana, you've been doing huge efforts. In New South Wales, Sam Herman, what a star, mate. You've been within the sales team for 3 months, and you spent most of that time really supporting out the broader business in terms of hardship and doc prep to support the ops team. So great effort. In terms of the southern region call-outs, Celine, Hannah, Charles and Michael Evans, great job. We also had a number of personal bests in the sales side. So I think Tom Wald and Lee, you guys had a super month. Alana, supported by Lara and Jasmine, you're really kicking some goals. So thank you. And I think Trevor Knowles and Daniel had a personal best month, and Mel Goddard and Cody and Joanne. Wow, I think that over $17 million worth of commercial business in June, which was just a huge number. So thank you. Also, the Resi team leaders have been doing a fantastic job assisting Resi Ops with the financial assistance and working through COVID. Also great, and we'll provide some more detail going forward just around the work that the corporate healthcare team with Heidi and the team have been doing in working on some of our larger exposures and also completing the what's called the significant exposure reviews. Great job. Lastly, I'd just like to recognise Kingsley, who heads into his long service leave and then retirement later this month. Kingsley started with us in the Adelaide office many years ago and has worked supporting our clients, and he's always got great humour and we'll miss you, Kingsley, but thank you for all your efforts for the business, and we wish you all the best in your retirement. So look, on behalf of the leadership team, I want to thank you all for your efforts. What you do each and every day is making a difference. I recognise that it is challenging, and it will continue to be challenging while we transition back to work. My hope is that we will start getting back to work reasonably quickly. You would have seen some notes around, which team you're on, whether the A and B team, and we'd like you to, we'd encourage you to come back to the office for two or more days a week with some staggered start and finish times. Of course, this doesn't apply to our Melbourne colleagues at this stage. Unfortunately, we're no closer to the back to work there, but I encourage everybody, whether you're in your own personal life or whether you're coming back, transitioning back to work, keep your guard up in terms of practicing good hygiene. Make sure you get your temperature checked regularly, particularly when you're in the office, and stay safe. And for those of you that are working at home, make sure you get up from behind your chair and go for a walk and do some exercise. But that's it for me. I will hand over to Hannah now to share some of the work that she's been doing, particularly in terms of driving consistency and capability across the broad commercial team. Over to you, Hannah.
Thanks, Hugh. Hi, everyone. So as most of you are aware, I've been in the new role of Training and Development Leader since the 1st of April, so just going on 3 months now. As this is a newly developed role, we weren't sure what it was going to look like in practice, and I can already see it evolving and becoming more defined each day. Also within this time, we've had the unexpected extra challenge of the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as the June end of financial year period. However, I've still tried to do my best to continue progressing and developing the role regardless of these challenges. One of the huge intentions of this role was to have an internal resource for the existing staff members to help coach and guide where needed on a daily basis at a micro level. So I've been trying to be as accessible as possible to everyone so they feel like they have that extra support that we were hoping was going to come from the establishment of this role. So some good news from the training side of things. As you're all aware, we had the very successful rollout of the AML and KYC intensive training that's now been delivered to all staff members that were considered mandatory for this training, as well as some additional non-mandatory staff members. This was a huge accomplishment to be able to deliver at 100% attendance rate, and I hope everyone was able to take something positive from the training, or in the least give you a better understanding of where you can find the resources to help you better understand AML and KYC requirements. The feedback that I've received from that training has been all positive, which has been really encouraging. It's also earmarked me as a reference for everything AML, which I think is an added resource to BOQS, because it's always better to have somebody internally to assist with these things. There's still going to be things that I don't know, but so far I've been able to help with some more complicated structures and beneficial ownership queries. And where I can't help, we still have the KYC and compliance teams for additional support and clarification. I also just wanted to highlight another win, which I'm really excited about. We've started developing phase 2 of Support Point, which focuses on the commercial processes, procedures, and resources. I've been working really closely with Christina Simonovic, who is our Support Point contact. She was able to give me access to start creating procedures myself within Support Point. So far I've drafted around 20 procedures, and I aim to create a new draft procedure within Support Point daily, just depending on my capacity. And we have discussions lined up for late July or early August to finalise an actual phase 2 rollout date. This is a project that I'm really, really excited about, and I believe it's going to be such a huge resource to the business and something that we've needed for quite some time. Support Point will be our one-stop shop for all policy, procedures, resources, and processes eventually. It'll have step-by-step guides for everything that we do on a daily basis, as well as accessibility to all forms and policies that we use. The goal is to phase out SharePoint and the Forms folder and only have Support Point as the resource centre. So hopefully when we do adopt the use of Support Point, it's going to create consistency and efficiency within the business as a whole. To help develop Support Point, I've also engaged with the team leaders across the country and asked them where they feel there are training gaps in the business. I've started compiling these suggestions and prioritising them to start working through. So hopefully over the first year in this role, we manage to close all those gaps and provide the resources where they need to be. I also just wanted to add something I've really enjoyed from this role is getting to know more of my colleagues around the country and seeing how the different states and teams work. So thanks for everyone who's been getting in contact and sharing your stories and experiences within BOQS, as well as providing me guidance and support and training material suggestions. It's been really encouraging seeing everyone come together to work towards a common goal. So that's all from me, guys. I'll now hand over to Gavin, who will update us on some of our key initiatives, as well as share what is coming up in the project space.
Thanks, Hannah, and thanks very much, Hugh and the leadership team, for give me the opportunity to speak. I'm sure most of you know I'm not very shy in coming forward to speak. However, I don't often speak to myself, which is what I feel like I'm doing right now. But I thought what I would do is not only talk about what's coming up, but also just reflect on what's been delivered and the investment made by the business into our products and our offering and how much it's been. And I think in the current environment, we tend to forget some of the good stuff that's actually been happening. So if I step back and I break it up into, I suppose, 5 themes. Firstly, self-service, enhancing our digital capability, streamlining our processes, making sure that we are growing profitably in a risk-focused way. And of course, I can't forget COVID-19. So that's how I like to look at all the initiatives that we're working on and bucketing them. The first one I'm going to kick off with is last year in September, we refreshed our mobile app. That was actually quite a big thing. It wasn't just our mobile, it wasn't just a new look and feel, but it was enhancing our digital capability, but also allowing clients to even self-service them more. So they could now view their statements online. They can see pending transactions. They were able to manage their credit cards in the app. So really a refreshed mobile banking experience. I'm sure most of you, in fact, I'm hoping all of you are clients of BOQS and are all using it, and the feedback we get is really positive. But that's actually the first step in the journey of improving it, and I'm going to talk about what's coming to the mobile app actually in the next few months. At the same time, we actually also launched Apple Pay and Google Pay on our BOQS credit cards, and that has had an incredible take-up with clients using it significantly, and I think it was mentioned a couple times in George's presentation at the end of last year. So a really good news story. We also upgraded our online banking platform, again with self-service in mind. So clients are now able to manage their term deposits in online banking. They're able to manage personal details in online banking. They can block and cancel their credit card in online banking, and even set their statement preferences. Something else that we delivered at the beginning of this year, as COVID was coming on board, so we haven't probably taken advantage of it as much, is 7-day settlements for our merchant terminals. So historically, our merchant terminals only allowed 5 days, 5-day settlement next day. Now we are settling every single day, on Saturdays and Sundays included on that day. And so our business banking offering, and we can talk a bit more about that later, is actually starting to look really, really good. Obviously, we've also had to be fairly responsive to market conditions, and with Virgin going into administration, our credit cards are linked obviously to the Velocity frequent flyer program, and a lot of clients were not comfortable with that proposition, and we're wanting to move from the Velocity to Qantas frequent flyer program. Unfortunately, the experience was not great initially, because they had to actually get a new card, and they had to close the card and get a new card. So we very quickly got onto that, and we were able to change it so that you can keep your card and just switch from a Velocity to a Qantas, but on the same card. Something that we had to do at the beginning of the year was look at our priority pass on our credit card, and we made changes in December last year on our priority pass on our credit card. Now, there was a lot of noise about that, but the real reason for it is priority pass opened up where you could access it, and you started to access it in domestic airports, at cafes, and to be honest, we had a couple clients who would go there on their way to work, and I think there was one client who spent $6,000 at the priority pass, which we covered. So we needed to make the change, and we put into place a limit of 4 per user. That didn't actually impact many clients at all. That number of 4 plus partner was based on what we saw our clients actually using. The other thing we did was in the commercial space, we looked at a lot of our risk settings on our goodwill offering and our SMSF offerings, and we made changes there to make sure that they were still competitive in market and leading in market. We also, at the beginning of 19, we introduced a variable chattel mortgage, but you would have all seen a note from Nicole Rigo at the start of June to say that that's now available for consumer as well. So not only for commercial, but consumer. So that was great. And then one of the things I suppose I've been most proud of, which is funny with some of the items I've listed, but it actually was our end of financial year promo. For years we've been doing promo, and Tim will speak more about it, but for years we'd be doing promos which have been points or cashback or those sorts of things. But, we sat down at the start of the year together with stars and distribution and credit and product, and it was so what? And what we came up with, I think, hopefully contributed quite a lot to, was very innovative and contributed to the results that we saw that Hugh mentioned earlier in terms of our end of financial year promo. And I'll let Tim speak about that a bit later. We also, in the resi space, we've also made a lot of changes. So in the interest of streamlining our processes, we launched operational excellence in phase 1, which was getting automated conditional approvals, streamlining data capture, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what's coming there. We also recently made a change to allow desktop valuations. That makes it easier, quicker, and more cost-effective to do them. We also had to, for both resi and commercial, introduce changes as a result of banking code of practice, and that was not insignificant, certainly in the commercial world. And throughout all these initiatives, we've also had to review our product offerings and their fees and their prices and their rates, and I'm sure everyone would be aware we've made a number of changes across all our products in terms of our fee structures and our rates. to make sure that we continue to grow profitably. So it would be remiss of me also not to talk about financial assistance and what we've had to do. Hugh mentioned 10,000 requests that we've had to process. There was a lot of work, and I just want to make a big call out and a big thank you to everybody. I can't name people, but this was across the whole business. I know the guys in sales and operations, in middle office, RT, in business systems, MIS, everybody across the business had to get stuck in and do things. And I just want to call out some of the things that we've done, because when I put the list together, it's actually quite impressive. So people are aware we created a SME government guarantee loan. We created numerous relief packages for clients, probably more options than we needed to give, but that created a little bit of complexity. But, with client in mind, and we were aiming to make sure it was as easy as possible for clients. We introduced the ability to switch from principal interest to interest only on resi and commercial. We introduced a repayment calculator to allow bankers to be able to put any structure in and provide the new repayments or rates or term or anything. And then we used that, and that was a big thank you to Blake and the MIS team who built that. And then we used that calculator.
Did you phone him?
Sorry, someone's on. Can someone mute themselves?
Just send me the picture.
Sorry, someone mute themselves. Thank you. And then we used that payment, that repayment calculator to actually generate correspondence to clients. So because we were struggling to get them all into our systems, but the ability to get the calculator to generate the letter meant we were able to go back to clients as quickly as possible. And I know people, we didn't get back to them within the 30-day time frames or whatever, but we really did everything we could to get back to them as soon as possible for us to process. I mean, if you think we processed 500 transactions in June, we processed 10,000 transactions in 2 months. So that just gives you a size of the magnitude of that. And finally, I just want to move on. I've been given I forgot to tell Kimberly I've never spoken within my time slot, but I'll move on to what's coming, and I think this is really cool. So the big one that's coming this month, and I'm only going to focus on things that are coming in the next 6 months. The commercial loans in T24, they're coming. It's 21st of July, subject to testing, which is happening right now. That's going to allow our commercial and goodwill loans to have the ability to view their loans in online banking, to view their statements in online banking, to better structure their loans. So you can go from principal and interest to interest only, to go from fixed to variable, allow redraw on those loans in online banking. Really cool. And that will be the start of us actually doing more with our commercial lending capability. Mobile app enhancements are coming, I mentioned earlier, but we in August or September this year, we're going to be upgrading our mobile app to be able to manage personal details, send secure messages, term deposit instructions. The other one that's really cool is as we look to broaden our business banking proposition, but multi-party authorizations in the app. That is really cool, and it just enhances our whole business banking proposition. And something small, I'm testing it at the moment. I've got the latest version. It actually now says good morning, Gavin, when I log in the morning, good evening, Gavin, when I log in the evening. So small things are cool. We're looking at Apple Pay and Google Pay on our debit card. Again, that's this year. That's not in the long term. And then 2 others that will really help in terms of making it easier for us to do business and process and get through the workload is Operational Excellence Phase 2. So that which will allow us to automatically generate formal approvals, remove data capture, automate solicitor instructions, and remove home loan advice sheets. It will greatly speed up our process, a better outcome for our clients. Also, straight-through processing for transactional accounts. Currently, we can do some elements of straight-through processing for individuals. We're going to do that for commercial. So for commercial entities. So that's the ability for any entity and on a transactional account to go straight from Finesse all the way through to T24. Speeds up our process, which is fantastic. We'll speed up our turnaround times, and we'll start meeting those SLAs that we really want to hold ourselves accountable to. And then tying that all up, and the last thing, and then I promise I'm finished, everybody, is a new online application form. That's currently in process. At the moment, it's going to be for individuals, for deposits, overdrafts, and credit cards. but the longer term, it's going to be for all entities and other products. But that actually does more than just an online application. It actually allows bankers to now sit with clients and complete an application form with clients straight online. Obviously improves our data quality, improves the client experience. But if you think about what I said about straight-through processing, that will then, the long-term vision is that's going to go straight through Finesse into T24 if it's a bank account without being touched by anyone. Account number gets generated, and in the long term, how I hope to see that works is the instant issuance in the mobile app of your debit card. So, you can apply for a bank account and have a card within minutes. That's not the 6 months, but that is the vision and where we're heading to. So I have run over, but I don't think by too much. But I'm going to now hand over to Tim, who's going to talk through the end of financial year promo and how we're going. And I'm assured that Tim is an expert in webinars, so you should hear something really good from him now.
Thanks, Gav. Appreciate it. Hi, everyone. Quickly, because Gav's probably taken a minute of my time. There's a couple of things I want to cover: supplier promotion, success, end of financial year promotion, so two different things, and also the webinar series we have been running. On the supplier promotion, so just for those of us who might not have too much exposure to it, that's where we partner up with one of our suppliers and put a special offer out to customers. Now, the popular one at the moment is 12 months with no interest and no repayments, because obviously it helps customers manage their cash flow, but there's a number of different ways you can structure them. As we came into June, we had 17 active arrangements with suppliers in the market, and in June we settled promotional deals for 14 of those suppliers. We picked up some marquee partners sort of over the past couple of months, Carl Zeiss and Design for Vision. A big call out to Trevor Knowles in particular for Zeiss. He made that introduction, and we had a really successful June with them, and they have marketed to all their customers that we are their preferred finance partner, and they have offers with us, which is an awesome result. So thanks, Trev. In June, we settled 102 supplier promo deals for a total value of $13.5 million. Just to put that into some context, that's 10% of all commercial settlements done last month were through supplier promotions, and a third of all of our asset finance deals we settled were promos as well. Dentsply Sirona, who is far and away our largest partner consistently, we did 40 deals for them for $6 million, and that's basically 25% of our yearly target for Dentsply. We did that in 1 month, so that worked really well. Henry Schein, we did 24 deals for $3 million, which is as much as we wrote for Henry Schein under promo in all of last financial year. And for Carl Zeiss, who I mentioned before, we did 9 deals for $1.3 million. A number of those partnership agreements roll off on 30 June, so I'm into the next stage of renegotiating with those suppliers, but I think we can stand over them, and the hard work of you guys on the ground in talking to your salespeople with the individual suppliers has worked really well. So thank you for your support. Thank you for keeping up the consistency of contact with them, and that really came through for us in June. On to the end of financial year promotion, which is different to our supplier promos. At ABX earlier in the year, we ran a show special where we would contribute between $500 and $1,500 towards an invoice with a supplier for a customer if they finance with us. Suppliers loved it. It encouraged customers to buy consumables with the suppliers or to buy extra software, cover their design fees and things like that. And we didn't get a long runway with it at ADX because of all of the COVID dramas, but we did roll it out for end of financial year across all industries. So up to yesterday, we had $10 million in loans that settled at the end of financial year promotion, which was about 8% of our total commercial settlements. A huge call out to Trev, Melinda and Dan, who wrote 50% of all those deals. Nicole Rigo sent an email out yesterday. You've got one last chance to make sure your customers are eligible, so please go through your list of transactions that settled. If there are any of those customers who should be eligible for this and should get it, please let Nicole know so we can apply it. The suppliers, as I said before, love this promo. We have extended it for RACGP members and AVA members out through till September. So just be aware of that. If you see some questions coming in from customers around that, we will honour those. And just while I'm talking about the AVA and RACGP, we have put out a special Resi offer for them, which runs through till the end of August with some low rate offers. RACGP deals have started to flow through, which is fantastic. And I'm working with the AVA on creating a member portal for where they can refer deals straight through directly to us. So all in all, across the promotional space for June, really successful. And once again, thanks to everyone who contributed. Big shout out to Nicole and Gab as well, who got the end of year promo up. That was fantastic. Onto our webinar program. When COVID hit ADX, we pivoted reasonably quickly into online education, and lots of businesses did. But we've run 7 webinars since the middle of April. I'll just quickly run you through the content of those. The first one was run by Hugh, which was how we could support our customers and their practices through COVID-19. I did one explaining financial hardship and how that would impact businesses. Peter Monkton ran an economic update. Heath Stewart from Ecovas, Clark Jacobs, one of our partner accounting firms here in Sydney, did one on cash flow planning and government stimulus. That one in particular was fantastic. We got a lot of really good feedback on that from our customers. The one after that was COVID-19 and the Australian property market. This was by far our most well-subscribed webinar and shows, what's on our customers' mind. I think we had, we must have had close to 200 registrations for that and had over 100 people online for it. Definitely cemented in my mind that is a topic we will need to be fairly regular with. And Tal Elos from One Group, who presented that, I've caught up with him a number of times. He's picked up so much business out of those webinars and referred it back into us that One Group have us now as their preferred financier. I'll be making introductions sort of nationally to the state managers and the salespeople on the ground, but they're a really good group who provide a great service for our customers, and we're starting to see the deals flow through. Ran a COVID-19 insurance implications with Clive from Experian, and just last night we did Rebooting Your Practice Out of COVID-19 with Graham Lawrence from Health Project Services. So quite a packed schedule. We've been running them fortnightly, and we're going into planning our next sort of lot. I just want to give a massive shout out to Tani and Laura for their amazing work on the webinar series. Tani pulls all the strings in the background, and Laura works really closely with our presenters in getting the content together and getting the marketing material out there. We'll be sending out a link to all of those webinars, so either you can watch them or if you have customers who are interested, you can send those links on to them. All those webinars are available on our website at the moment. That's enough for me. Just a quick note, thanks for everyone's hard work in June, an outstanding month. I know the pressures everyone's under, but I really appreciate all the effort everyone put in. And on that note, I'll hand over to Tracy, who's going to host question time. Thanks, Tracy.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, everyone, for dialing in today. For those of you who dialed in on your mobile, if you do have a question, you'll see a little hamburger at the top of your screen. It's those 3 lines. And if you just click on that, you can submit your question if you have one. So I'll start off with the first question, Hugh. We've got a few. But given that Fiamma couldn't join us today, unfortunately, and most of us haven't met her yet, can you just share a bit about her and also share what her impression is of the BOQS business?
Yeah, thanks, Tracy. Unfortunately, Fiamma had a pre-existing personal commitment today, but so she gave her apologies. But she's been with the bank now, I think, 2.5 weeks, and personally, I'm delighted that she's joined us. She's got a huge level of experience in terms of customer-facing roles, most recently with CBA, and she. I would describe her as being extraordinarily passionate, intelligent, and a massive advocate for the business bank, but also specifically for BOQS. She understands the importance of our strategy and also building out the strategy. She's been very supportive in unclogging some of the red tape that we've had around recruitment. and I know she's looking forward to the opportunity to address you all, and you will be, over the coming days, be receiving some invitations for a similar setup to this, where you'll get to hear from Fiamma directly. Thanks, Tracy. I think we're having a few difficulties with Trace's line. I've got a couple of the questions that I can see here that I might, while we're just trying to fix Tracy's line up, I'll deal with. One of the questions here from New South Wales is, we've had some key people leave our business over the last few weeks. How are you viewing this? And look, I think I acknowledge that yes, we have. I think that certainly three of our longer serving commercial writers left the business just before the end of the year, and sad to see them go. That being said, I think it does absolutely create some opportunities for us, both in terms of development and opportunities for some of our other bankers and staff to fill those shoes. And it also creates some opportunity for us to supplement the quality of the talent that we have in this business with some outside talent. So we're actively going through the recruitment process to enhance and build up the team. One of the things when we stood up the commercial healthcare business by merging it with the business bank was there to support some of our larger clients, and we're going to be putting additional resources there and to support our bankers in managing those accounts that are transitioning into quite larger exposures. Tracy, you back online now? We've still got some technical issues.
Yeah. Look, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
Excellent. So we've had a question come through from Nyara. She's asking, do you see this crisis changing the way all teams and organisations operate going forward?
Good question. Yes, I do think this crisis will have long-lasting changes. I think, thankfully, and particularly in our operations area, we were relatively paperless, and which had enabled us to pretty much stand up work from home very quickly with minimal productivity reductions. I think that the organisation is staring into what its premises footprint will look like moving forward. I think there is still a strong preference that we have our corporate offices where we can all get together and make sure that we can communicate and socialise and innovate. It's a lot easier face-to-face than the other end of a Zoom call or a WebEx call. I do think also our customers that we deal with will have differing needs. We've seen the rise of telehealth and other issues, and we need to make sure that we're able to support our customers as their business changes. My expectation is that from a recovery perspective, as I mentioned earlier, there'll be this initial recovery, which we have seen, but then for the next 12 to 18 months, there'll be these, what I call small W's, where there'll be localised outbreaks. So that's going to force us to, have to work closely with those customers that are impacted by those secondary outbreaks. But yeah, there's a new normal. I don't think we'll be going back to pre-COVID ways of working anytime soon.
Thanks, Hugh. And Tim, we've had another question come through for you, and that's, how are our suppliers feeling about the current environment?
Thanks, Tracy. I think for the suppliers, it was really tough for them sort of through April and May. There were a number who had to, stand down staff and certainly weren't selling any equipment. That has really come back through the tail end of May and June, fueled by both the instant asset write-off but also the easing of restrictions. I was talking to Dentsply Sirona yesterday. They had a couple of large trucks that were coming from Victoria to help them deliver goods that didn't happen, and the sales guys had to go to Hertz and rent vans and pack them with cone beams and Cerex and literally hand deliver them. So they were flat out right up to the end of June. I think we and our suppliers were maybe a little bit disappointed the government announced the extension for the instant asset write-off before the 1st of July because we thought that might dampen June, but it didn't, and now I'm really glad that they did announce it because I think if June 30 was the drop dead date for the instant asset write-off, then it would have been much, much tougher. So some good news there that the instant asset write-off now runs right through till the end of December this year. I think our suppliers are expecting a lot of activity in July and August, so we are expecting very busy months in July and August, and then potentially some uncertainty with any changes in JobKeeper and end of deferrals of finance payments. No one really knows what's going to happen at that point in time. So I would say optimistically bullish at this point, certainly for the next couple of months, and then a bit of suck it and see following on from that.
Thanks, Tim. Hugh, we probably have time for one more question. In your view, what are some of the biggest challenges we face as a group moving forward, so the whole of BOQ Group?
Thanks, Tracy. I think there's the general issues that are faced by all financial services and indeed all organisations that are associated with COVID, and I think we've talked to those extensively. But the uncertainty that creates does at times mean that we have to think of different ways of working. And BOQS and indeed BOQB is working hard to ensure that we are getting much better at executing on both our tactical and our strategic initiatives. It's fair to say that we historically haven't been as good as we should have been in terms of delivering on our projects, and so execution is going to become vital. There's a lot of work going on across the group to ensure that we are putting the customer back at the centre of everything that we do. Again, I think it's fair to say we have lost a little bit of that. I think we are right now organisationally and also within BOQS a little bit too product focused, and so we need to stare into how do we make sure we and Jeff often uses this terminology, how we get that secret sauce back into the business and make sure that the customer is delighted in every interaction that they have with us, from discussions with our ECs all the way through to the talk through with operations and or the CSC.
Thank you. So I think that kind of takes us to the end of our question time at the moment. However, if anyone in the business has any questions that they want to ask, please go and ask them on the hashtag BOQS question time on Yammer, and someone in the team will respond to your question. Alternatively, you can always email me or just give one of us a call, and we'll be happy to answer your question. I'm going to hand back over to Hugh now to just close us out. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Tracy, and a couple of things. Firstly, just again, a very big thank you to everybody for all your hard work and effort. I know I did call out some areas of the business, and I knew I would forget some, so I'm going to just quickly wrap around. There's been some huge efforts across the broker team. Karen, I know, has been sending me some fantastic feedback from our introducers of the work that's been done there. Well done. We set that channel up 18 months ago. We knew there were potentially going to be some teething issues, but that's been a raving success and continues to be. On the deposit side, Angela and the team have been doing a fantastic job to grow our deposits. Gav mentioned a whole lot of stuff that product's doing, and also IT. The ability for us to have been able to work at home with minimal disruptions has been fantastic, and they've been integral in terms of building systems and keeping us running, not just the day-to-day stuff, but also the hardships and also finance. Trish does a great job in terms of providing the reports. And again, apologies if I've missed anyone. Above and beyond, I think on behalf of myself and the broader leadership team and Fiamma, thank you. As I said, we will be doing more regular stand-ups or virtual stand-ups. I said there'll be a BOQB stand-up, which Fiamma will address everybody very shortly. But don't wait for these stand-ups. There is opportunity at any time for anyone to reach out and ask questions and get greater clarity on the strategy, or if you think there's a better way of doing things, please bring it forward. Thank you, everybody, for your attendance. Hopefully you found it useful, and I look forward to the next one, and hopefully with the easing of restrictions, I'll be able to see you face to face very soon. Thank you.